Dante Moore and the Ducks were rolling and quacking loudly against Minnesota on Friday night. He was 27 of 30 for a career high 306 yards and 2 TDs. And get this, he just posted the highest completion percentage for an Oregon Duck QB in the program's history. So Dante Moore doing exactly what the Ducks needed him to do on this day when they cruised to the victory, 42-13. Jordan Davison on the ground. Davison, he had 7 attempts, just 57 rushing yards. And Oregon continues to get the job done. All right, time now to welcome in CBS Sports national college football reporter Brandon Marcello to unpack what we witnessed from college football on Friday. Let's start with Minnesota-Oregon. Brandon, the Ducks, they cruise. That's not a surprise, 42-13. And Dante Moore, man, he was in the zone. What impressed you the most about his performance against Minnesota?
Yeah, people might look at those numbers and just think Dante Moore threw a lot of screen passes and his receivers did the rest downfield, but he was taking some shots downfield. They wasn't like they were simplifying the offense. It was some incredible performance tonight by Dante Moore, but really what sparked him was the running game getting going early for him. They rushed for over 170 yards tonight, and Noah Whittington, their running back, had an incredible run where he fought through, looked like the entire Minnesota defense, breaking all of their tackles and got into the end zone, but almost looked like he had a touchback because he lost control of the ball on his own accord, but managed to get back to possession and scored. But it all was sparked by that running game. This Oregon team, especially offensively, is just so darn fast that Minnesota, and for that matter, most Big Ten teams, just can't keep up with their speed on the outside. And Dante Moore back in the saddle a little bit because he came into this game throwing 0 touchdown passes in the last 2 games and had 1 interception, throws 2 touchdowns tonight, plus the big game, 306 yards, and as you mentioned, completing 90% of his passes on 30 attempts. That offense was humming along, 510 yards against only 196 for Minnesota.
And they are hoping they can be humming along against USC. Another big test, right? They don't have the same margin for error, right, like Indiana and Ohio State. If they lose, things get very sticky for them when it comes to the college football playoff. How do you see that matchup playing out? I know you don't expect them, right, to do what they did against Minnesota.
Well, hey, you never know. Maybe this is the confidence boost they needed. It's been about a month since they've had a really big blowout win, Oregon, and that was on the road at Rutgers. This offense can be just absolutely deadly against teams, and USC's defense has been very hot and cold this season for the most part, and USC still has to play a critical game against Iowa at home. And again, USC's got to hit the road to Oregon next week, which just absolutely sets up so well for the Ducks. This is obviously a critical stretch for the Ducks to stay in the playoff hunt, but also for USC. If USC wins Saturday, they're still alive, and you can bet Lincoln Riley is really going to have those guys going big time into Oregon there, and what could end up being a shootout potentially if the Trojans can get past Iowa this week.
Yeah, we know the Trojans, they love to play in shootouts, seeing how some of their defensive haven't been that great, but the offense has really been clicking with Lincoln Riley at the helm. Now, earlier in a grinded-out type of game that was, let's just say, not pretty by any stretch of the imagination, Louisville goes down to Clemson, right, 20-19, and there were field goals left and right missed, literally, Brandon, by kickers from the Cardinals to give them the lead and potentially the win. What do you make of everything that we witnessed there from the special teams for Louisville alone?
Yeah, before I get to the special teams real quick, Louisville's late game situations have been terrible the last 2 weeks. They've lost back-to-back games last week in overtime where they had an opportunity to drive down the field and potentially win it, and they couldn't get play calls in particularly well. And then they called plays where they didn't have timeouts left, but were throwing in the middle of the field where the clock wasn't going to stop. And in this game, within a 5-minute period there in the final 7 minutes of the game, they missed 2 field goals. You kick one of them and make it, you win this game. 22-20. And it was a weird game because Louisville's defense stepped up at times. They forced a fumble inside their own 5-yard line in the fourth quarter. They get the ball back. but can't really do anything with it. And they get opportunity after opportunity again. As I mentioned, they missed that field goal. Then they get the ball back and they still have another chance. And what do? They miss a second field goal with a different kicker. Tonight, they missed 2 field goals and also a point after attempt. And of course, that PAT is crucial because they might still be playing in overtime right now if they just hit that PAT. Just an absolute travesty on special teams. And for that matter, a travesty in late game situations by this Louisville coaching staff and the players themselves in these last 2 losses.
Speaking of travesty, right, potentially the ACC might not get a team into the college football playoff depending on how things shake out. So what does this mean for this conference when it comes to the college football playoff? Because now Louisville is pretty much, it's a done deal for them to not be in it.
Yeah, we got that 5-team tie still at the top with only 1 loss still in the league record right now as you see it on your screen. A lot of opportunities here. It's incredible to think this. Duke has a chance here, and they just lost to UConn a week ago. Listen, you go look at Louisville, they're not down and out necessarily as far as still being able to create chaos in the ACC, the all-chaos conference, as I call it, because guess what? They go on the road next week and play SMU, the team that went to the ACC championship game last year and lost on a walk-off field goal. Louisville could put more turmoil in all this by going on the road and upsetting SMU, which I would not completely discount potentially happening because Jeff Brom, the Louisville head coach, rarely loses 3 games in a row, and that would be a 3rd straight loss. But this weekend is going to be wild in the ACC. You see a lot of ACC teams tied up there at the top with 1 loss, and the reason for that is because a lot of these teams have had a lot of crucial injuries pop up at times, and it's end up hamstringing them, and they end up losing games. This week, a lot of them are still a little hamstrung, so I'm interested to see what ends up happening. This thing is going to go down to the final weekend in the college football season, and as you said, if there ends up being like a 2-loss champion come out of the ACC, who's to say they get into the playoff? Because you might have a James Madison or, for an example, the American Conference champion be ranked higher than them in the college football playoff rankings, and if that happens, they don't get that automatic bid as the 5th highest rated conference champion in the playoff rankings.
You know who's guaranteed not to make the college football playoff? Clemson, which is funny because at the beginning of the year, everybody thought they were a shoo-in for the college football playoff, but that's why we play the games. They're just trying to get bowl eligible, okay, Brandon? So when you think about this game and just overall their season, what do you make of this team?
Well, they're 1 win away from bowl eligibility, which if they did not get to bowl eligibility this year, it'll be the first time in 20 years, which is just completely unfathomable to me if they would miss a bowl game. But credit to Dabo Swinney and co for getting this win. Now back-to-back wins. They beat Florida State. Now Louisville. You should beat Furman to get to bowl eligibility. And I can't wait. As weird as this sounds, I can't wait until they play South Carolina in their rivalry game on the road. Remember, Carolina went into Clemson and beat Clemson. This is a situation setting up to be one of those games where it's just they're going to be throwing rocks at each other. They're not really playing for anything other than rivalry, bragging rights, and that's the best type of game really late in the season when you're just really mad at how disappointing your season has been. South Carolina's lost 4 straight going into their game Saturday at Texas A&M, and then Clemson, of course, returning the most production of all the ACC, and they end up being almost near the bottom. Just completely unfathomable to think that. But Clemson, 1 win away from bowl eligibility, and Dabo Swinney a couple of weeks away from probably making some massive staff changes there as he tries to move forward as Clemson adjusts to this new era of NIL and the transfer portal, which they haven't really been able to do very well the last 3 years. And that's one of the reasons why they're struggling.
Yeah, well, you have to adapt, right? Because if you don't adapt, the game will pass you by. Brandon Marcello, we appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much. And remember, Saturday, 3:30 Eastern, Penn State on the road at East Lansing against Michigan State. Saturday, CBS, our coverage, and also streaming on Paramount+. Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, and Jenny Dell will be on the call. We will also have full pregame and postgame coverage right here on HQ.